2:23. Alas, poor Annabelle. There were rains after that, and things grew green again, and presently it was time for Cousin Annabelle to arrive on the little steamer. Mrs. Hyman and Katy had come out to help make the girls' new summer dresses, and Clara and Mother had been in their element, turning the pages of the Goldie's Ladies' Book, and taking of muslin bodices, buttons, and braids. "Of course," said Clara sadly, "anything we can make here will be sure to be 6 months late behind the fashion in Boston, to say the least, and I wish I might have hoops for every day." "I don't," said Caddie. "Good gracious, every time I sit down in hoops they fly up and hit me in the nose." "That's because you don't know how to manage them," said Clara. "There is an art to wearing hoops, and I suppose you're too much of a tomboy ever to learn it." "I suppose so," said Caddie cheerfully. But to herself she added, "I'm not really so much of a tomboy as they think. Perhaps I shall wear hoops some day, but only when I get a good and ready." Then one day Cousin Annabelle came. The little steamer seemed full of her little round-topped trunks and boxes, and after they had all been carried off down the gangplank, tripped Annabel Grey herself in her tiny button shoes, with her tiny hat tilted over her nose, and its velvet steamer floating out behind. Clara and Caddie had been allowed to come with Mother and Father to meet her, and Caddie suddenly felt all clumsy hands and feet when she saw this delicate apparition. "Dearest Auntie Harriet, what a pleasure this is!" cried Annabel in a voice as cultivated as her penmanship. "And this is Uncle John, and these the little cousins. How quaint and rustic it is here! But just a moment, let me count my boxes. There ought to be 7. Yes, that's right, they're all here, and now we can go." Father piled the 7 boxes in the back of the wagon, and Clara and Caddie climbed in on top of them, while Annabel sat between Mother and Father, her full skirts billowing on their knees. Above the rattle of the wagon wheels her cultivated voice ran on and on. Clara leaned forward to catch what they were saying, and sometimes put in a word of her own, but Caddie sat tongue-tied and uncomfortable, conscious only of her own awkwardness, and of a sharp lock on one of Annabel's boxes, which hurt her leg whenever they went over a bump. When they reached the farm, Hetty, Minnie, and the boys ran out and stood in a smiling row beside the wagon. Tom held baby Joe in his arms. "Dear me," said Cousin Annabel, "are these children all yours, Auntie Harriet?" "Ah, there are only 7, said Mother, "and every one is precious." "Of course Mother told me there were 7, but they do look such a lot when one sees them all together, don't they?" "I picked you a nosegay," said Teddy, holding out a rather wilted bunch of flowers, which she had been clutching tightly in her warm hands for a long time. "How very thoughtful of you, little girl," said Annabel, "but do hold it for me, won't you? I should hate to stain my mitts. You've no idea what a dirty journey this has been, and what difficulty I've had in keeping clean." "You look very sweet and fresh, my dear," said Mother, "but I'm sure that you must be tired. Come in and take a cup of tea." Caddie stayed outside a moment to put a quick arm around Hetty's shoulders. "That was an awful pretty nosegay you made, anyway, Hetty," she said. Hetty's downcast face suddenly shone bright again. "Yes, it was, wasn't it, Caddie? Would you like it?" "Why, yes, I would. I think it would look very nice here on my new dress, don't you?" "Oh, it would be lovely, Caddie." That evening everyone listened to Annabel telling about Boston. Mother's eyes shone and her cheeks were pinker than usual. It had been a good many years now since she had seen one of her own kin direct from home. Now she could find out whether Grandma Gray's rheumatism was really better, or whether they only wrote that to reassure her. She could find out what pattern of silk Cousin Kitty had chosen for her wedding gown, who had been lecturing in Boston this winter, what new books had come out since the end of the war, why Aunt Phoebe had forgotten to write to her, and 100 other things that she longed to know, but could never get them to put into letters. From time to time Father glanced at her happy face over the old newspapers which Annabel had brought him. It was only a moment such as this that Father understood how much Mother had given up when she left Boston to come with him to Wisconsin. But after an hour or so of Boston gossip, Tom grew restless. Both he and Caddie were well tired of Annabelle's city airs. "Well, I guess Boston's a pretty good place, all right, but how about Dunville?" Tom said. Cousin Annabelle's silvery laughter filled the room. "Why, Tom, Boston is one of the world's great cities, the only one I'd care to live in, I am sure. And Dunville, well, it's just too quaint and rustic, but it isn't even the maps yet. It isn't even on the maps yet." "Why, Tom," echoed Caddie seriously, "you had not to have said that. I guess Boston is just like heaven, Tom." Everyone burst out laughing at this, and Cousin Annabelle rose and shook her outer flounces, preparatory to going to bed. "But really, Tom," she said, "I want you to show me everything in your own savage country. I want to be just as uncivilized as you are while I'm here. I shall learn to ride horseback and milk the cows and salt the sheep. If that is what you do, and turn somersaults in the haymow, and what else do you do?" Page 227, 228 next time.